Good evening, folks. Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's time for live reaction to Rangers 3, Celtic 3 at Ibrox today. I've got Chris and Martin back with me to go over a pulsating, chaotic 90 minutes. Chris, coming into the game, there was a lot of talk about how we couldn't afford to lose it. A lot of people saying they'd be happy with the outcome of a draw. Given how that 90 minutes unfolded, how do you feel that we came away with a point?
It's bittersweet for me. That's just my personal opinion, Paul. I think we did enough to win the game over the 98 minutes as it ended up being with 8 minutes of added time, especially in the first half. Like barring a fantastic Jack Butland save from Matt O'Reilly's header and Kyogo not really finishing that one at the back post, we could have been 3 or 4-0 up at halftime, and it would not have flattered Rangers. Like, we were absolutely sublime in the first half. Our press, our counter press, the way we moved the ball, we just tore them to absolute pieces. And a lot was said in the pre-match build-up about whether McGregor would play, and if he didn't, what influence might that midfield three of Owata, O'Reilly, and Hatate be able to have, and what influence would they have on the game? Well, it was massive in the first half. To lose that goal late on, it really stings. And I mean, it's a fantastic goal, but as we'll talk about, Yang has to show Matando outside. You just cannot allow him to come into the box. It's obviously a fantastic shot, but kind of have to look at ourselves for that moment in the game. Holding a 2-0 lead and then a 3-2 lead going into injury time, we should be seeing that out. That being said, I did say it would be a scoring draw, 1-1 or 2-2. So I'm obviously delighted with a point in the sense that we didn't lose the game, and we are absolutely still in control of this title race, even though we are potentially going to be behind after Rangers play midweek. But with 4 home fixtures and 2 away fixtures, we're in a good spot, and we control our own fate, knowing if we win the 6 games, we will be champions.
Yeah, this is live, by the way. In case you didn't notice already, you can get involved in the live chat. You have to be subscribed to take part. Get your questions in, get your thoughts on the game in. We'll try and pick out some good ones as we go through. There's a lot to get through, a lot to cram in from that game, Martin. But I thought the way we approached the first half, we get the first goal after 21 seconds. One of the most remarkable goals I've ever seen Celtic score. Dyson makes the runs. He'll probably make 100,000 of those runs in his career. And that'll only happen once. Again, James Tavernier must have absolute nightmares about Dyson Maeda. A crazy goal, the perfect start to the game. But I thought we absolutely dominated in that first half. In terms of going away to Ibrox with no away support in a big game that you can't afford to lose in the context of a title race, that first half performance is about as good as it gets.
Listen to Neil Lennon at half time. He described that as the best half he's seen a Celtic team in decades. He was absolutely elated, and I had the same feeling. I think when you've seen the build up to the game and the attempts that the fans made to create an intimidating atmosphere, that the players didn't appear fazed by it in the slightest. In fact, that they were almost more determined to go out and overcome the challenges of having no fans in the stadium. And I was really impressed. What we did demonstrate in that first half was players who've got an incredible amount of technical ability. The way we were pinging the ball about, 1-touch, 2-touch passes, not fazed by players having somebody quite close to them marking them. It was just incredible to watch, and really didn't want that first half to end, despite the fact we're 2-0 up. And sometimes when you've got a lead, you think that I'm really keen for the whistle to be blown. But I didn't feel that way at all. I felt that at 2-0 there was a third coming. At least a third, and I know Rangers had a couple of chances, but we had some really good chances in that first half, and it almost felt like we've talked a lot in the past about not taking your chances, almost being too complacent, with the mindset that another chance will come. You're 2-0 up, taking that chance doesn't appear to be quite as important as it being 0-0 or being 1-0 down, where there's almost desperation and a bit more focus on converting your chances. It felt a little bit like that. The Rangers keeper obviously had a couple of good saves as well, but you couldn't have dreamt of a better first half, Paul. You know, the possession, the confidence we're playing. That we predicted that the inclusion of Hatate would make a huge difference. Between Hatate and O'Reilly, I thought we were outstanding, and Iwata as well. You know, all three in that middle, and then the wide players. The only bit I was a little bit concerned about in that first half was the yellow cards. You know, we couldn't get a yellow card, and the experience he's got at that level, I was concerned. And another couple of yellow cards on top of that, I thought, well, you already start to worry that a red card might come later in the game. But by the yellow cards, we could not have asked for a better start to the game with the early goal, and then of course getting the second goal relatively early. And well, I think there was, what was that, 34 minutes, a good 10-15 minutes to go in that first half. I was really confident that, you know, we get a third goal if we could have just had a little bit more time in that first half. So an absolute dreamy first half, and at half time the reaction was wow. You know, there was only going to be one winner, and you know, we're in that second half with a lot of confidence. Of course, the game changed in the second half, but couldn't ask for a better first half, Paul, than the way it unfolded.
No, absolutely. I think you're right. I think some of the interplay, the build-up, I think you think about the phases of the game. Obviously, out of possession, we were really good, really aggressive. We got the timing of the press right. I thought we were brilliant off the ball, summed up by the first goal, obviously, but then we really built on that. I thought with the ball, we looked dangerous. In transition, we looked dangerous. Both of you have touched on it already, some of the chances. O'Reilly's header, Kyogo's one or two half chances. Dyson Maeda, I think at 1-0 has a brilliant chance where you think if Kyogo's got a chance at that angle, you fancy him to bury it. When you see the reverse angle from behind Maeda, it's kind of right down Butland's throat. I've already seen a couple of comments to the effect of, should we maybe have killed it in the first half, because we certainly had chances to do that, and you felt if we got a third, that really would have secured the points for us, regardless of what Rangers could have mustered in the second half. But I thought the first half was brilliant. It was really good, Chris. And we get the penalty, remarkably so. I said, didn't I? There would be absolutely no escaping talking about the referee. And here we are. We've got a lot of talking about the refereeing performance to do throughout the course of this video, but I don't think there's any doubt. At the time, I actually didn't see it. I didn't think there was it was only in the replays that you see that Goldson's elbow's out and up here. And it's an absolute stonewall penalty. It's a great cross from Kuhn, by the way, on his right foot into a dangerous area. I think it's Maeda that gets the wee flick on it, and Goldson's arms out. And I think there's only one decision that can be made. We've seen a lot of Connor Goldson handballs go unpunished, but there was no escaping this one being a penalty, was there?
No, it's clear as day. I mean, as soon as it went to VAR, you knew it was going to be a penalty. And look, we've missed 5 of our last 10 penalties. It's not a good statistic, right?
I had no idea who was going to take it.
No, me neither, to be honest. I figured it wasn't going to be Hatate because he had been on penalty duty. Kyogo's never taken them. So O'Reilly clearly had been appointed the designated penalty taker, and to do a Panelka down the middle at Ibrox is just balls of steel. Like, fair play to Matt O'Reilly. He clearly was like, well, I'm not picking a corner because I don't feel confident enough to pick a corner, but he was clearly sure that Butland was going to dive. And he actually lifted it high enough that even if his trailing legs were in the middle, it was always going to be a goal. And at that point, we were just under massive ascendancy in the game. And look, there's other things that happened in the second half, and we'll talk about those and we'll break them down. Each team had a lucky goal, right? Our first goal, that's a lucky goal. Great press by Maeda, but that's lucky. Same with the Rangers 2-2 goal. That's a lucky goal. Both teams had a penalty. It will very much split opinion whether you think Silva's was a penalty or not, right? And we'll talk about that. But
will it?
Well, I don't know. In the comments, it's interesting, right? So we'll see. I certainly happy to give my opinion on it, but to go in at halftime 2-0 up, and actually in the context of the game, I must say Joe Hart made an absolutely outstanding double save right at the end of the first half to keep it 2-0. So you're going in.
Rangers first shot on target.
No. Yes, it was, and that is one of the best 45 minutes I can remember at Ibrox. I would say only one other game was the game in which Henrik Larsson scored his 50th goal, and we scored 3 goals in the second half against Rangers. That's probably only another 45 minutes where I can remember where we were absolutely ruthless in terms of the game. But honestly, like I said earlier, it should have been 3, if not 4-0, and it would not have flattered Rangers. Like, we were by far the best team in the first half. It wasn't even a contest in terms of the game at that point.
Yeah, just to go back to the O'Reilly penalty, it was nonchalant on it. It was one of those penalties where if he missed it, he might have looked silly, but when the keeper dives and ends up on his backside and he's just delicately dinked it down the middle, he looks like a genius. A great penalty. And you think, Martin, 2-0 at half-time is always a precarious scoreline, because you know that if you're to lose the next goal in the game, the momentum is absolutely turned upside down. And sure enough, I think we started the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of the second half fine. I thought it looked like it could be more of the same in that second half. Look, I say something like this. I don't say something like this lightly, sorry. I think if you go back over the 5, 6 years of this channel, you'd be hard pushed for me to be calling a Rangers player a cheat. But Fabio Silva was a disgrace today, an absolute disgrace. I think he had 3 dives in the first half. One with Scales at the edge of the box, which was actually outside, barely even any contact. He was looking for a penalty, even though it was outside the box. He rolled into the box, stayed on the ground for near on a minute. He had one with Alistair Johnson, where Johnson ended up getting booked. They sort of came together. As Rangers were trying to transition up the pitch, they came together. He went down rolling about, holding his face. There was more contact on Alistair Johnson's face from him than there was the other way around. And then we come to the 53rd minute, Martin, and John Beaton, standing 5 yards away from the incident, immediately gives him a yellow card for simulation, gives a free kick to Celtic, and you see it back and you think, he's called that spot on, absolutely spot on. But of course, VAR intervenes. There's so many question marks here. I mean, is it clear and obvious? It's clear and obvious that Alistair Johnson gets a foot in the ball and that Fabio Silva is looking for a penalty. There's a very slight bit of contact with Johnson's right leg on Silva's knee, but Johnson gets in that action, the tackling action that Johnson makes, he gets the ball. He's actually trying to pull his right leg away. It's not a penalty. Just because there's contact doesn't mean that it's a penalty. And I think anybody, any rational-minded person looking at that can't call it as a penalty. But he gets sent to the monitor, and you knew there was only one outcome after that.
Yeah, I think one of the big differentials on the penalties is around gaining an advantage, and when you look at the first one around blocking the ball with your arm in a really dangerous area, the penalty box, I think clear advantage gained, and I've not heard anybody, regardless of whether you're a Rangers fan or a Celtic fan, anybody contest that first one was a penalty. The second one, I think we'll debate for a long time, and listen to Neil Lennon versus Chris Boyd, listen to Brendan Rodgers versus Philip Coman, and of course the views are as you would expect, and I think that's going to continue to be the way. Celtic fans will see it one way and Rangers fans will see it the other. I can understand why it was given. I think if you're over at the screen looking at the still view, you'll see the contact, and clearly there is contact. I think there's a couple of factors that are worth considering. One is, has the player been disadvantaged? Could the player have stayed on his feet? And clearly he could. The contact was minimal. Was the player was he denied a clear goal scoring chance? And again, I would suggest no. The ball was getting away from the player, and had there been no contact, the player wasn't going to convert that chance. But to your earlier point, Paul, around the way the player had conducted themselves, I mean, the referee made an early conclusion, which understandably then changed his mind, but made a conclusion based on that player's behaviour throughout the game, which was, there's a yellow card for simulation, not recognising that there had been a very, very mild touch to the player and had been contact, but it wasn't enough contact for the player to go down. I think that's the bit that's critical. He could have stayed on his feet. Now, some might argue, well, you don't have to stay on your feet if there's contact, you're perfectly entitled to go down, but there's then a fine line between going down because of the contact versus diving. Because if you go down when there's no need for it, you go down, surely that should be considered a dive, which is why the yellow card was produced. So I think, for me, yes, there was contact. I don't think we can deny there was contact, but the contact was minimal. Didn't justify the player going down, and I don't think had there not been any contact, that the player was going to convert the chance anyway. So it wasn't denying a clear goal scoring opportunity. So for me, it wasn't a penalty. But I think every Rangers fan is going to say it was, and every Celtic fan is going to say it wasn't. I think it's going to be one of those ones where Chris Boyd described it as a stonewaller. Is that a surprise? No, it's not. Neil Lennon said the opposite. But for me, absolutely not. I think the referee's original decision was right. But that's the issue with VAR. You go and look at a still, you look at a picture as opposed to a video. I suspect that maybe they do have the opportunity to look at a video, but once you start looking at pictures, there was only ever going to be one decision for me. And of course, the penalties come in. Just listening to you guys talking about that first half, Paul, I think it was you reminded me of that Maeda chance. You know, it was he just hit it right, the keeper, rather than bending it round. You think about when we come to that final goal, the Rangers equaliser late on, a far more difficult chance, but just bent it in the corner, So it just reminded me what a sitter that was.
Yeah.
But,
just on the penalty for Rangers. Look, I don't think it is. I don't think there's any getting away from it. I think there's a few comments as well about whether the replays showed the Johnston touch on the ball. I don't know whether they were trying to separate the fact that he touched the ball and then there was contact, or they were trying to not show the fact that he'd already touched the ball in the same action to nick it away from Silva. In terms of people's opinions on it, Chris Boyd has no credibility at all. He's got as much credibility as the average punter he could pull at the Loudon Tavern. He said that penalty on Kyogo last week was absolutely nowhere near a penalty, and Kyogo had his leg kicked from underneath him. It's laughable, absolutely laughable. Anyway, Chris, as I said, 2-0, precarious. You lose a goal. Rangers score the penalty. Joe Hart goes the right way, but it's right in the top corner. Plenty of practice for James Tavernier. And then, as I say, the game's turned on its head. They have the momentum. The crowd are up from nothing. We've played them off the pitch for most of the game to that point. And less than 2 minutes later, it looks like they've equalised. But it seemed very, very clear to me that Iwata was filled up the pitch by Tom Lawrence. Very clear. John Beaton let it run. I think there's a block made when I think Silva gives it out to Sima. There's a block made that ends up at Dessers at the back post, and he puts it in. Again, it gets sent to the monitor, and there is no other outcome than a foul.
Yep, because it was in the attacking phase of play. And actually Beaton's position for that was absolutely perfect. I watched it on the replay. I just don't know how we didn't see it the first time, but that's where obviously VAR does step in, and like there's 3 significant VAR decisions in the game today, right? Connor Goldson, penalty. Silva, dive. He is a cheat. That's just never a penalty. He was looking for that, and Beaton absolutely makes the right decision. And then Nick Walsh steps in. Like, it's an absolute joke, right? It's a joke. Sure, if that happens to our player, are we calling for a penalty? Of course we are, because that's football, right? But that's never a penalty. And that's also never a goal, that Rangers' second goal, right? But that should have been a huge warning sign for us, right? So then the temperature of the game goes down a little bit. We do make substitutions, but I didn't think they were the right ones. I personally would, if you were bringing on McGregor, I would have brought on McGregor for Iwata at that point in the game. Now, you guys may feel differently, but I feel like that should have been the change at that time in the game. And then Bernardo could have come on for Hatate. And then
O'Reilly's on a booking as well.
O'Reilly's on a booking. So that's kind of that's exactly what I was about to say, right? So that is a tough call. But you can see that Callum was not match fit. Like, he never gives away those types of passes, especially in these types of games. He's normally very, very consistent. Now, some people might say Bernardo should have made a better effort to come to the wall, but that's not a pass you want any player making across the middle third of your own half. And then it leads to a bit of a scramble. Silva hits it. It takes a wicked deflection, and then it's 2-2. And there's like 11 minutes to go plus 8 minutes of injury time. Like, Rangers were massively in the ascendancy at that point in the game.
Yeah, Martin, I think for long spells in the second half after it goes to 2-1, as Chris says, we did calm down a wee bit after that ruled out equaliser, but we were struggling to get up the pitch. We were struggling to get out. Obviously, we saw the introduction of Idah later on in the game, but when we talk about that Rangers equaliser, as Chris says, I think Callum McGregor's actually going to play it looks like he's going to play a pass out to his left-hand side, maybe to Maida on the left wing, and all of a sudden he's being closed down. I can't remember who it's by, but he looks back down at the ball, and all of a sudden he's just decided to play a square ball looking for Iwata, and it's short, and Sterling gets on it, and then as Chris says, there's a blocked shot. I think Carter Vickers blocks the original shot, who was, I thought, outstanding all afternoon, Carter Vickers, and it comes to Sima, huge deflection into the top corner, and you think 85 minutes in the game, 86 minutes, this is it. We've maybe passed up the chance of victory.
Yeah, I think, Paul, if you don't mind me, just quickly one last point on the penalty. I think the fact that the ball is touched almost becomes irrelevant, because I know when penalties happen, people talk a lot about did he get the ball, did he get the man. It was almost like it was two phases, ball then man, wasn't it? So, but last thing on the penalty was commentators said if that's given, it's ridiculous, and I think we're still saying the same thing. So substitutes, as Chris has said, I think we can say in the cold light today the substitutes were wrong, Paul, and it's easy to say that in retrospect, but I think for me, we talked about this briefly on Friday night. Who's your best players? Do you think you can keep those players on the pitch for 90 minutes? We've seen it a lot of time when the games are as significant as this game was, almost a title decider. No, we go and win that today. I think it's the title's in the bag. Our draws kept it in the balance, and therefore one of the questions we need to ask ourselves is, could or should Hatate have stayed on longer than 65 minutes? And only the manager and the backroom staff will know whether, physically he could have stayed on a bit longer. I've heard a lot of people say he looked tired. I don't think they would have taken him off because he looked tired, but it's just they might be trying to protect him from further injury. I'm not sure, but I think that's one of the decisions we'll potentially regret. The Kyogo one worked in our favour, but at the time I thought, probably wanted him to stay on the pitch, but that did work in our favour. The Kuhn one didn't work in our favour, because Yang didn't perform well when he came on. And then the last one, O'Reilly, I'd have kept O'Reilly on for 90 minutes every single day of the week. I thought he was outstanding today. I thought he was really, really good between him and Hatate. So we've taken off our best two players in the game. Ultimately, we've taken off our best two players in the game. And tactically, and Chris talked about this earlier on, so you don't take off Iwata for McGregor, so what do? You end up sitting deeper. And some would say that's the right thing to do in a game like that, because you want to protect your lead. But by sitting deeper, all we did was we encouraged Rangers to come forward, as opposed to doing what we'd done in the whole of the first half. And for the line, not quite sure, because the second half Rangers did pen us back a little bit, but they penned us back significantly more at 65 minutes when we took Hatate off, and then even worse than that when O'Reilly went off in the last phase of the game, which turned out to be the best part of 20 minutes when he went off. So for me, listen, I'm not the Celtic manager for a reason, right? But I think Hatate and O'Reilly were a big gamble taking those two off, considering how impactful they had been in the game, and we just lost the spine of the midfield. And of course, we had issues out wide as well. I'm sure we'll come on to talk about Yang, but I think for me the big thing with the goal, obviously we talked about the captain's role in it, but the deflection was cruel. And I know Chris said earlier we got a lucky deflection with the initial goal, but you look that back, it was really cruel. That could have gone anywhere, and it just went flying in the corner. So it was so. And you then think at that stage in the game at 86 minutes, you think that's probably it. I don't think I was sitting concerned that Rangers would go on to get a third goal, because I didn't feel they had created a lot of clear-cut chances. I kind of thought at that point that's it, 2-2. We're probably going to settle for a draw, and they would possibly settle for a draw. Maybe they would be keener to get the winner than we would, just in the context of the way that things have panned out now. But I didn't predict what was going to happen next, Paul. That we were going to, within 71 seconds, we were going to react in the way that we did. It was dreamland, wasn't it? We didn't have time to feel sorry for ourselves. We just reacted in a really good way, and all of a sudden the game was back in our favour at that point.
Yeah, I think a credit to the team, by the way, because as you say, 2-2, you think that's it. If we just hold out, we get a draw here, because obviously there's a wee bit of time left, and you think they will have the momentum having just scored. But again, we're right up the other end. I think it's Bernardo plays a lovely ball into Adam Idah. A couple of touches, he just manages to sort his feet out, get himself half a yard. He drills it low with his right foot, and it goes under Jack Butland. And from nowhere, from absolutely nowhere, you think that you might only be getting a point, and all of a sudden you think, here we are on for all three again. A great finish. I actually thought over the course of the game, I mean, Rangers from open play didn't really create very much at all. I don't watch 90 minutes of Rangers very often. It's only against us, and I'm still quite shocked by how direct they play. In open play, they are very direct. How many times did they look for a long pass today, and it was out at the other end of the pitch, or it ran through to Joe Hart? I think their best chances of the game came from set pieces. Goldson has a great opportunity with a header in the first half, just manages to get away for Carter Vickers. They had that one in transition right before half time where Hart makes a good double save, but I mean, across the rest of the game from open play, they didn't create a huge amount, and I think the stats would back that up. I think we had more shots on target. We had better XG in the day, certainly from open play as well. But we go 3-2, and you think maybe we are getting out of here with all 3 points. And Chris, 8 minutes added. I think it's 92, 93 minutes. Matando cuts inside, and listen, it's a brilliant goal. A great strike. But you always looked at it from a Celtic point of view and think, how could we have avoided that? How could we have stopped that happening? He scored an almost identical goal against Hibs last week. You'd like to think that all of the Celtic players would have seen that. So you know that if he's in that position, he'd already cut in maybe 5-10 minutes before that and tried to look to do the exact same thing. You cannot let him come inside. That was my concern when Yang came on. You guys have talked about substitutions. I turned to the boys next to me and I said, I'm just not sure about Yang defensively. And he wasn't diligent enough. He wasn't strong enough. He didn't get close enough. There's 4 or 5 minutes to play. You're defending a 1-goal lead. Listen, it's a great strike, as I say, but you can't let somebody cut inside and have a shot at your goal. You stop it by any means necessary. Yeah,
you have to force him outside. Look, I'm not going to take away from the finish. It's a fantastic finish, right? And if that's one of our players scoring that goal, we'd be waxing lyrical about it for weeks and weeks. But yeah, for me, as much as James Forrest isn't the same offensive type of player, I feel like he's got enough of these games under his belt where I feel like he would have perhaps played that situation better. And David Murray right there. We should have brought Forrest on. He is a lot better than Yang or Kuhn in that defensive sort of role, and he's played multiple times for Brendan Rodgers, so he kind of understands. And then in the context of the fixture and where it was and the particular time in the game, that is what you're looking for. You're just looking for limit the chances for your opposition, right? Play the percentages, play the odds, and Yang just doesn't. It's very poor from our perspective. I'll give credit to the player. It's a fantastic finish. But that is a goal that could easily have been avoided, right? And credit to Adam Idah. That was an absolutely fantastic finish. Great. Bernardo does fantastic to receive the ball, and he plays a perfect pass, not really allowing the 2 Rangers defenders to intercept that pass. And like you say, manages to get it out from underneath his feet. Don't know if Jack Butland would like that goal, to be honest. Of the 3 that he gave up today, that's maybe one he feels he could have had, but credit to Idah. And I really like him. I think we were talking about it in our group chat. He really gives us a different dimension. His ability to hold up the ball, his ability to slow the game down enough, but still get you up the park. And he can finish. Let's just be honest. He scored, I think that's 6 or 7 goals he's got now. So to come off the bench, and at the time of the game, with it being 2-2, you think, oh, we've thrown away the points. And then we did throw away the points. But a fantastic goal. And those substitutions, it's not that bringing on McGregor wasn't the right move. I just would have put him on. I would have put him on for Idah. And I'm with I'm with Martin. I would have left O'Reilly on. Like if he's gone 40 plus minutes without taking a second yellow card, then just leave him out there. Your best players are your best players. Ride them to the end. You know, and if we gave up the third goal with O'Reilly on the park, then so be it, Paul. But those two changes are questionable. You know, but it is what it is. We would have taken a draw before the game, but when the game plays out the way it does, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got about just under 10 minutes to run. Any last questions or comments, get them in. We've got a few things left to cover, Martin. You can give your brief thoughts on that third goal. Although I think you've touched on it already. Some handbags at full time, which I kind of missed. I don't know who was involved there.
TikTok, Todd.
The shock. There's a shock. The best talker in the world doesn't ever do much on the pitch, right enough. And then I suppose some more wild commentary for the Rangers manager after the game, about how they were moral winners and a few other ridiculous statements.
I don't think he's doing himself any good. I remember this with the last manager as well. The comments just became more and more absurd, and it almost reeks of desperation.
What do you think he means by moral winners? Because it certainly wasn't that they were the better team on the day. They came to 2-0 down, but they had a shot to basically win the league title against their biggest rivals on their home patch, and they never managed it. They salvaged a late draw.
I seen a quote where they said, "We are more the winners of the day." But was it moral? Was it moral as opposed to more? Moral. I think
he's talking about Fabio Silva. Sorry to interrupt you again there. Maybe it's Fabio Silva he's talking about. Made them moral winners.
I don't know if moral's maybe the wrong word that he's used. I think the essence of what he was trying to say was we showed a lot of personality and character to recover in the second half and come back. We would argue that the big shift in the game was the penalty, and had that not been given, then Celtic got another 10 minutes without losing a goal. The fans become more frustrated. The fact that the fans were to help Rangers today and going to be the difference between the two teams alongside this magical manager was the fans were booing at half time, and the boos were really, really loud, weren't they? So I think he's desperately trying to cling on to the fans getting behind the team. The reality is that the comeback will be exaggerated, and there won't be as much said about how emphatic Celtic's first half performance was. It's another game at Ibrox where, despite there being no away fans, Rangers have failed to take advantage. So I think that's now 5 where they've only had a single victory, and we talked about that on Friday, the significance of that game or non-significance of that game. So there's another game at Ibrox. Now I know that won't be the case next year, but another game for Brendan Rodgers as well. So that's now 16 games. There was a lot of chat about Brendan Rodgers' 80% win rate. It didn't really tell the full story, because if you look at Rangers' win rate, and of course add in today's result, their win rate is 6.25%. So it's one win in 16 games. So it's incredibly low, and I think that's one of the factors we take into this last game is Brendan Rodgers' ability to get the better Rangers, and we'll have the home advantage. And Rodgers talked about in his post-match as well, where he said, some of these players who are coming back, Hatate, McGregor, Palmer, if we get Palmer back in, they'll have more games under the belt by the time we come to play Rangers at Celtic Park, so we are going to be stronger. Rangers might say the same about, Sima, for example, but certainly for us, the players who have been missing have been our best players. I thought Brendan Rodgers' comment about we are in a really good position kind of summed up how I feel. I feel like we're in a much stronger position this afternoon than we were this morning. This morning, had Rangers taken advantage of the momentum that they've gained this year, and of course the partisan crowd, and done what they told us they were going to do and beaten us, we would have been in a really difficult position tonight. But anything other than a defeat, I think we go into this last part of the season in the driving seat. There's a number of factors that make me feel that way. One is that the return of Hatate, the form of O'Reilly. I mean, O'Reilly's now 31 games in the league with 13 goals and 11 assists. He's just so pivotal to that team. And I know some have said that a little bit of dip in form recently, but for me it's just because he was so good that we've seen a slight reduction in form, but he's still involved in goals week after week. So I think O'Reilly, Hatate, McGregor coming back in, and Carter Vickers gives me a lot of confidence. When we look at the run-in, we've got 6 games to go with 4 at home and 2 away. Rangers have got 7 games to go with 5 away and 2 at home, so quite the opposite. because they have had a run of home games now, which is part of the reason why that's helped them have the good run that they've been on. I think the disagreement on the pitch, Paul, I did see some of it. It started a little bit earlier in the game, and I think we might have been ahead in the game, or struggling to remember exactly when it was. But McGregor and Cantwell had a disagreement on the park, and they were talking away. They're talking away for a good 60 seconds. And I think Cantwell said something along the lines of, "We'll see, if you could lip read." That's what he was saying, and I don't know what McGregor had said to get that reaction. But at the end, it was Cantwell with McGregor again, and he pushed him. He lifted his hands and pushed him. So I think there had been a bit of verbal, and then Cantwell decided to lift his hands, and that's where there was a reaction from a number of players. So that was the carry on at the end of the game.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think when you listen to Clement versus Brendan Rodgers, I think a big difference in class with regards to what they said about the opposition, how honest they were in their appraisal of the game, and how realistic they were about what's likely to unfold in the coming weeks.
Yeah. Neglect to mention as well that probably the only thing surer than the Rangers penalty today was a Celtic member of staff getting hit by a missile from the crowd.
I just like to comment on that, Paul. That's absolutely shocking. And also, there's a still image of a Rangers supporter giving a Zeke Heil Nazi salute as well that I've seen on social media. Like, their fans are an absolute disgrace. I'm not going to sit here and say that we don't have elements of our support that also do things that are below the belt, but they are consistently, like the glass bottle, the incident today, the missiles that were thrown at our end.
It's almost every derby that they've had.
And they booed their own team off the park, Paul. They booed their own team off the park at halftime. Yet they're lapping it up, thinking that they've somehow won the league title. Well, you've won nothing yet, right? And let's just see where we are in 6 weeks' time. But I certainly like our chances with the health of our squad, first and foremost. When we probably play them in 3 weeks' time, Hatate is going to be fully match fit. Hopefully, McGregor is approaching full match fitness. CCV is fully fit. And if we do get Palmer back, our 11 is way better than theirs. And with 60,000 fans, I fancy our chances with the running that we've got. And look, I'm disappointed that we couldn't see out the game today, because I actually think if we win the game, we're a stick on at this point. That's the way I would feel to go on and close it out. But we got 6 games to go. The only other thing I wanted to really mention, Paul, was we've had the discussion about Liam Scales before, right? And I don't really think he covered himself in a lot of glory today. He did do some good things, had some great blocks. But the difference between him and Carter Vickers and his ability to get the ball out, and honestly, you can just see how much Carl Starfelt was fantastic with Carter Vickers, right? The way the two of them could get the ball out. And I still think that's Carter Vickers still not had a loss in a Rangers derby game in the league. He's still not had a loss yet, which is an absolutely ridiculous statistic as well, really, when you think about it. So wasn't too impressed with Scales today overall. And it's tough because he's not going to be dropped, right? If he's healthy, Brendan Rodgers is going to continue to play him. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I thought he had one of his poorer days today.
Yeah, it's just on the ball, isn't it? Particularly trying to play out. He struggled at times. But there you go. It's a share of the points today. Like the video if you haven't already. Help us get as many views as possible, and we will see you next week for the build-up to the final game before the split at home against St Mirren. Thank you.